gentlemen, boys and girls, and all you fine folks tuning in from near and far, welcome, welcome. Step into my little speakeasy on the airways where the jazz is smooth, the company grand, and the night is always young. We are going to start off tonight's broadcast with some more SCPs tonight. We are returning to the site where they keep all the dangerous creatures of the unknown world. Now, once again, we actually have a few long stories. Hopefully these ones actually last us just as long as last time. Starting off with SCP-015. These two was, well, not two, but these ones I have not really heard of. I looked over them and I haven't really heard of them, but supposedly some of them are. One of them is that is really dangerous, supposedly. But who knows? Hopefully you guys understand them or know of them to make it a little easier on yourselves. Let's just jump right in to the horror. SCP-015 Beneath the Pipes by a personal accountant named Dr. Harlan Miles, Foundation researcher. I've been with the Foundation for 9 years, and I've learned one hard truth. There's a difference between reading about an anomaly and standing inside one. Files give you numbers, containment notes, cross-references, and if you're lucky, a redacted incident report or two. What they can't give you is the weight of the air, the scrape of metal against your skin, or the way your instincts claw at your gut begging you to run. SCP-015 had been one of those containments since the early 1900s, long before I was born, and 20 years before I was. Well, no, a little longer than that. Long before the Foundation had a vocabulary to call something Euclid. All I knew before stepping inside was that it was a structure made entirely of pipes, tubes, and ducts, sprawling into impossible directions, far larger on the inside than it had that had on the outside. There we go. Oof. I was warned not to attempt repairs, not to tamper with the structure, and all of the above not to get lost. It was early autumn evening when I was escorted out to the site. The containment building squatted low in the industrial district, a dull concrete husk with Foundation guards posted at every entry. The interior walls were lined with warning signs, more than I'd ever seen clustered around a single SCP chamber. Well, each one carried a different kind of threat. No tools beyond this point, no repairs, no entry with authorization. The last one made me sink. Which, of course, these ones are a little contradictory to one another since, of course, you have authorization and they're not really threats, though. They're more like warnings than threats, but oh well, that's just my opinion. The heavy containment doors are groaned open and the smell hit me first. Rust, mildew, oil, and something faintly sweet. Like the stench of an animal long since decayed, but still clinging to the air. My escort, a young guard who couldn't have been more than 23, refused to step past the threshold. His voice cracked when he told me, "They don't pay me enough to go in there." I didn't blame him. I couldn't blame him either. You'd have to pay me a lot to do this stuff too. I wouldn't get paid enough to put my life on the line like this. The interior was darker than I expected. No windows, no natural light. Only the occasional harsh glare of a mounted flood lamp, bolted to the grinder. The walls were not walls. Okay, that's why that didn't make sense to me. In the ordinary sense. They were a living tangle of pipes, some gleamed with condensation. Condensation! Oh boy. Okay, I knew that word didn't sound right when reading it. Now it does. Okay. I'm assuming that's what I mean. Others were flaking and corroded. They ran in every direction. Vertical, horizontal, coiling back into itself. Splitting, rejoining, some so narrow they seemed to vanish into thin wires, others wide enough to crawl in through. Everywhere I walked, I heard the faint groan of metal, that trickle of unseen liquid, the sound sharp hiss of vented steam. Occasionally a pipe would shudder violently, making me step back instinctively. Once I swore I heard something moving inside them. The Foundation had documented only a small portion of SCP-015's interiors, but I volunteered to push further. To map a sector beyond that previous team and had dared. Some part of me, the arrogant part, thought maybe I'd discover something to push my career forward. The rational part just wanted to prove I wasn't afraid. My footsteps echoed too loudly against the grated floor. That was the first detail that gnawed at me. In a space so choked with metal, sound should have been swallowed, dampened. Instead, every step rang out like I was being broadcast through the pipes themselves. Not long after I began, I found the first junction. The quarter split into 3 tunnels, each equally claustrophobic. The Foundation maps covered none of them. I chose the middle path, marking my way with the chalk on the pipes, just as protocol demanded. Give me 1 second. I just realized something. What happened to this? Oh no. Give me 1 second, everyone. Is it just quiet? Oh, it is. My bad. There we go, everybody. I just now realized that. I do apologize for my blunder. We fixed it. We got it fixed. And that's a bit disappointing, but oh well, we can't always be professionals at tech stuff lately. Alright, back to where I was at. Let's see. Chose the middle. Okay. Yep. The deeper I went, the more I noticed inconsistencies. Some pipes were warm to the touch, vibrating faintly as though pressurized liquid rushed inside. Others were icy cold, coated with frost. I found one pipe weeping a steady stream of black sludge onto the floor, pooling around my boots. When I bent to examine it, the puddle rippled. Not from my movement, but as though something beneath the surface stirred. Sounds pretty creepy, to be honest. I'm trying to find the right point. There we go. Maybe that's better. After 20 minutes, I stopped to rest, leaning against a large vertical pipe. My mistake. The moment my shoulder touched the metal, it pulsed, and I heard, felt something rush through it, as though the pipe itself exhaled against my bones. A low moan followed, a sound that didn't come from the air, but from inside the pipe. I staggered back, heart hammering. The moan echoed, then faded. Swallowed by the web of ducts above me, I raised my recorder and spoke, my voice shaking. Note: pipes exhibit signs of fluid motion, possible organic qualities. Sound resemble... I cut off. From somewhere deep in the tangle, I heard a clang, then another. Metal striking metal. The rhythm was steady, almost like footsteps. I moved on, quicker now. The corridor narrowed until the pipes pressed close to my shoulders, and I had to duck beneath the low-hanging cluster. The sound followed, clanging closer, sometimes pausing, sometimes resuming. When I stopped, it stopped. When I walked, it walked. The chalk marks on my pipes had vanished. I don't mean they were rubbed off, they were gone. Where I read thick white slashes, there was nothing but bare metal. That was the first moment I realized I might not be coming back. Eventually the corridor opened into a chamber. Calling it a room feels off. It was more like a nest. A swelling of tangled pipes in every direction, some looping overhead like grotesque ribs. In the center stood an object I hadn't expected. A toolbox. It was old, dented, red paint peeling away. The lid hung open, revealing wrenches, pliers, screwdrivers, all crusted with rust. I swear on my life, it looked like the tools were breathing. Each one rose and fell, almost perceptibly, as though drawing invisible lungs full of stale air. The wrenches rattled against each other, softly in rhythm, with... I turned to leave, and the interest was gone. The tunnel I walked through had welded shut with new pipes that hadn't been there seconds earlier. My chest locked tight, panic surged. The only way forward was deeper into the chamber. The toolbox lid snapped shut. I won't describe every twist and turn that followed. It blurs together in my memory. Corridors that folded into themselves, pipes that dripped scalding water onto my arms, passages that narrowed until I thought I'd been crushed alive. I heard voices in the pipes sometimes, whispers, sometimes screams. Once I caught a glimpse of something moving through the transparent duct overhead. A figure, crawling on fours, skin slick and pale. Also, since the time, my watch had stopped. Its hands frozen. My recorder died without warning. Battery drained to nothing. I realized finally that SCP-015 wasn't a structure. It was a body. The pipes were veins, the sludge is blood, the groans its voice. And I had walked too deep into its guts. The last clear memory I have is stumbling into another chamber much larger than the rest. The walls here weren't just pipes, they were shapes. Twisted human shapes. Arms fused into ducts. Faces stretched thin over veils. Ribs converted into lactitious of copper tubing. They weren't statues. One opened its mouth, and a burst of steam howled out like a scream. I collapsed. Something reached for me from the pipes. Cold metal fingers coiled around my wrist. They pulled, and then... I woke up outside. I was lying on the concrete floor just inside the containment entrance. Foundation medics crushed around me. They said I'd been gone for 6 hours. To me, it felt like days. My skin was marked with deep grooves, like something had tried to screw bolts into my arms. The Foundation declared my mission a partial success. I'd gone further than most, gathered a few minutes of recorded audio before the device failed, but they won't let me back inside. And there we go, was SCP-015. That one wasn't... It's scary, but it's not at the same time. It's one of those kind of horrors that it feels more claustrophobic than scary. I don't really have much to say on that besides that. So we're just going to jump on to 016. And from what I'm understanding, this is like a microvirus of sorts. Another virus. But Keter class, I guess is what people want to call it. Alright, on to the story. They brought me in because of my background in microbiology, but I'll never forget the first briefing. The file was slid across the table in a dimly lit conference room, stamped Keter. I had read plenty of cases before, but this one made my skin crawl. The first signs came from a remote mining camp deep into rural China, where several workers fell sick almost simultaneously. And what was strange wasn't the speed of transmission. It was coordination. Victims were coughing blood in sync, almost like it was orchestrated. When the Foundation stepped in, all but one survivor was dead. The survivor was a young man who showed no symptoms. I was one of the first researchers cleared to observe him. His vitals were normal, his lungs were clear. He insisted he felt fine, but then, when his blood samples were drawn, the impossible began. Under the microscope, the cells infected with SCP-016 moved like soldiers, not at random as most viruses do. They avoided white blood cells, weaving through like intelligent predators. And then they began linking together, forming Letitias. I'm probably saying that word wrong, so I do apologize to those that know the word I'm trying to say. I'm not good with that kind of new words I've never seen or used in my life before. Like structures. We had no idea what we were looking at, but it was natural. On the third day, the subject began to change. He wasn't sick in the normal sense. Instead, his body adapted. He grew dense scar-like tissue across his skin, almost like armor. His pupils elongated. He tore free of his restraints and begged us to let him out, claiming he knew how to survive what was coming. When pressed, he couldn't explain what he meant, only that the virus had shown him. Containment protocols escalated fast. Hazmat suits, flamethrowers on standby, but the real nightmare came when another D-class was placed in with him to test transmission. We assumed the infection would spread through bodily fluids. Instead, it spread through proximity. The second man clutched within minutes, blood boiling under his skin. And then came the screams. He wasn't just screaming at random. He was screaming back and forth with the first subject, as though they were speaking a language none of us could understand. Their heart rates synchronized, their breathing matched, and then they both looked at the observant glass at the exact same time. The overseers called for immediate termination, but killing them wasn't simple. Bullets slowed them, and fire contained them. But even in death, the virus still crawled. Tissue samples fought to stay alive, twisting in putrid in petri dishes until incineration. There we go. We discovered later that SCP-016 adapts differently depending on the host environment. A man trapped in an airtight chamber grew gill-like slits in oxygen-efficient blood. A woman starved for food grew chitinous appendages capable of tearing steel apart, as though the virus had given her the tools she needed to hunt. It shapes its host into survivors of whatever nightmare they're facing. That's when the terrifying realization hit us. SCP-016 isn't a disease. It's an intelligent parasite that thinks, adapts, and strategizes. It uses human bodies like clay, molding them into weapons. The worst case I witnessed personally was during an accidental breach drill. One infected subject wasn't terminated fast enough. In less than an hour, he became something unrecognizable. His bones had twisted outward into jagged armor, his jaw unhinged, and his fingers fused into claws. When we finally brought him down, it took 4 incinerators running non-stop to ensure not a single viral cell remained. Even though I swore I heard something inside the ashes. I've worked on dangerous pathogens my entire career, but SCP-016 terrifies me in ways I can't explain. But because normal diseases aren't like this. They don't evolve in seconds. But this one does. And when I sleep, I dream of the 2 test subjects screaming in unison. Like a choir, like a soldier's receiving orders. Now, there we are for 016. 016 is... What's going on? Oh, my bad. No. Ignore that. That was let's hope an SCP didn't just get into my systems. I don't need any of that, but as I was saying, it seems like one of those creepy post-apocalyptic situations like you'd find in old movies and stuff where some sort of virus breaks out and destroys the world and, you know, just, I guess, wipes everything off the planet and just eradicates everything. There's not much else for me to say to that. Besides the fact that was creepy. And honestly, that kind of just gave me chills. I don't have a lot of words to say on it, just because it makes me unsettling. I think it kind of just reminds me of some of the sickening, you know, horrors out there that viruses like this can, you know, happen in real life. Sorry, I'm lost in thought. Well, I guess that's it for tonight. I'm pretty stumped by this one. I guess it just makes me feel a little ill from it. I don't know if that's that or if... Well, okay, well. That's it, folks. The curtain falls and the music fades, but what a swell time it's been. Thank you kindly for stopping by this little corner of the airways. Your company makes the night shine brighter. Until we meet again, keep your spirits high, your jazz lively, and may tomorrow treat you grand. Good night, darlings.
Today, 7. You want to say goodbye?